Hello, I'm Leon, and it's hard to believe, but I've sailed about half a century, and since then, ever since I was 10 years old, safety has been paramount actually. And today, a windy day at Anchorage in Brittany is maybe the right time to think a little bit about how you can call for help, because I think that's one of the oldest needs in humanity. Mama, help me! So one thing is, of course, pyrotechnics, rockets and stuff. I have to have them, unfortunately, because there's still a legislation for me. But electronic means of safety equipment has always been really, really interesting. I started off with visual ones. Look at this one. I bought it when I was so young, 40 years ago, and it is from my favorite Norwegian company, and it still blinks. And I thought this would be a good way to call for help during night, and it's still as good as it was 40 years ago. Soon thereafter, I bought my first VHF. And I mean, when you're out sailing there, when the weather is really nasty, that's when you maybe want to call for help by electronic means. I believe that EPIRBs is one of the biggest inventions at all. So we'll talk a little bit about EPIRBs today. So here's my EPIRB, my Yotron EPIRB. It's a brand new one because I've had them for, as I said, 30 years now. So let's look inside and compare how they were compared to in the previous model that I have. So this is how it is. You just open it, take out this nice Tron 60 AIS, and if you forget about it, it releases itself actually when the boat sinks by means of this Hydrostatic Release Unit, which I've made an own video about. So let me now go in under the hardtop. It's a bit more pleasant there, and talk about EPIRBs. Follow me. This is much nicer down here in the under the hardtop. Let's put that shield here. Here I have a little collection of my old or my previous and current Yotron emergency equipment for calling for help. That is what I have in my grab bag. A GMDSS VHF with lithium batteries, which holds for 5 years. A search and rescue transponder. My old EPIRB, which I want to compare with the new one, and this has sailed, well, it's a bit bleak now, but it has been sailing for 30,000 miles with me, and it still works, this Yotron light. So they are really, really good quality products. And I believe that when it comes to safety and asking and calling for help, there is no compromise. So why should you have an EPIRB in first place? Why isn't a VHF or maybe just a cell phone enough? A cell phone only calls one number, and the battery can be flat, and you can have wet hands. It can happen that you can't touch it. So I believe in the VHF with a DSC call, but there are so many false alerts actually, unfortunately. So if you have two independent means of calling for help, like a VHF and an EPIRB, the likelihood that the Coast Guard or the MRCC is taking your emergency call much more seriously. And that's why I've always carried a VHF, even on my Hullberry RC 29 30 years ago, sailing in inshore coastal waters. So what's the difference between my old EPIRB and the new Tron 60 AIS? Well, this one is actually quite cool because it has a GPS built in. So that's good. But how do you know if it is working? How do you know if somebody is listening? You don't on these things. You just have to rely on, well, your test that you have done. So what you do is that you can push this button to the left, to the test, and then it does a self-test. But when you really want to use it, you trigger this little red handle, put it onto on, and it sends a distress signal, but you have no clue if somebody is listening to you. Well, that's different on this one. So this one is actually telling you a lot. So first of all, it doesn't only have the GPS signal to determine your position, but it also uses the GLONASS and the Galileo system. So 3 individual satellite systems to determine your position. That is then transmitted, and you have a little LED so you can see if your position has been found and is being transmitted. But the coolest thing, which I think, is actually that it has this return line signals, the RLS. So that means that when the Coast Guard or the MRCC, the search and rescues, have received your distress signal, it via the Galileo system sends back a link to the EPIRB, and it blinks here so you know your help has been heard. They might not have started to send the helicopters yet, but at least you know that you've been heard. This is psychologically so important when you sit in the life raft. So that is what it is doing, and then the little lamp up here looks very identical. So it has a strobe light blinking for the visual eye, but the new one also sends light as an infrared light, because the helicopters and the search and rescue people who are looking for you have IR cameras, infrared cameras, to look for temperature differences, bodies in the water and so on. So if this blinks really much in the infrared sector, then you are much better seen when they are close by. Of course, they also have both the homing frequency 121.5 megahertz for airplanes to home into your system. So it transmits continuously for 48 hours. So that's how long this battery lasts, and that at minus 20 degrees. Bear in mind, so if it's warmer, it transmits even longer. And this Tron AIS, 60 AIS, it does transmit all these things that I mentioned, but it also has another great thing, that it transmits on the AIS signal. So that means that this also transmits to all the plotters around search and rescue and other vessels that you are in distress. That means that my old search and rescue transponder that I still have in my grab bag is actually built into this thing. Okay, you cannot trigger only the AIS alone, so that's why you can use this, but this is all bells and whistles, so it transmits that as well. The important thing with an EPIRB is that it needs to have the antenna vertically up, and it is transmitting openly towards the satellite. So under the hardtop, that's no good, and not even under your life raft canopy is not very good, because it's wet and it can shield the relatively weak signals. So that's why you should have it outside, preferably floating. Of course, when it is in its cradle and the boat sinks, it goes out automatically, and that's why it should sit in the background to have a hydrostatic release unit. But if you take it into your life raft, you should have it floating. And for that reason, this one has, and the old one had it as well, a little line that you can, like a fishing line, so you can have it swimming like a little ducklet next to your life raft. And it is so strong, it's Dyneema, so it holds 25 kilos, so that will hold the biggest of waves. It also has a little hand strap here, so you can have it around the hand strap if you have to climb or if you don't want to lose it. So that's where I put my life into safety, because when I'm out there sailing in harsh weather and maybe colliding with another vessel, or I don't know, the big catastrophe happens, I want it to sit on my transom with a float-free hydrostatic release unit, so it floats free without me even having to take care of it. And then the rescue people will take care of me. So follow on my adventures offshore and inshore with always safety, comfort and style.